You guys got an awesome store here. I want to tell you what, I enjoy coming out here and looking at all this tackle. We just don't have that stuff back east or Midwest or anything. I mean, you guys come up with some big swim baits. I'd hate to have had to make my living throwing something that heavy. I think I'd have Popeye arms or something if I had to throw those big swim baits. But that looks like it'd be a lot of fun. I just can't imagine going out there and getting like 2 bites a day. I mean, it's what you guys go fish for, is 2 bites a day. They do that back east. They call that muskie fishing, you know. But I guess everybody's kind of got up here and they talked a little bit about everything. You guys probably heard about drop shotting and cranking, and we can talk about any of that stuff if you want to, but I was kind of going to go into a little bit about how I got started. I got a website, and a lot of the questions I get on that website is, how do you get to where you're at? How did you get there? How do I get sponsors and all those kinds of things. So I was going to start off a little bit about that, if that was all right with you guys, and then we'll just go from there. If there's something else in particular, we'll dive into electronics or whatever you guys want to talk about that's different that you hadn't heard today. Well, I'm here for you guys, so ask questions. There's no dumb question at all. So I promise I ask all kinds of questions wherever I go.
Are you going to buy one of those swim baits?
Am I going to buy a swim bait? Yeah, I got a whole pile of them back there. I bought some the last time I was here. I don't think I've caught hardly any fish on them yet. I'm not beating them up. I guess you got to throw them to catch them, but I spent way more money on swim baits the last time I was here, and I need to win some back to pay for all of them. But no, I got some set back there, and I'm going to do some more shopping. There's a lot of neat specialty stuff there. You guys are really fortunate to have such a good store. But for me, I dreamed of bass fishing when I was a little bitty kid, and it's really weird because my parents didn't fish. My mom was actually the first one to ever take me fishing the first few times. I don't think my dad knew really anything about bass fishing, but for some reason I loved it. And I fished every farm pond there was. We lived out in the country, and I fished every farm pond there possibly was. I remember running home and holding this big 2-pound crappie that I wanted my parents to mount. And I fished just all the time as a little kid, and I was very, into it. But what's really neat on how I got started was, neither one of my parents fished. So for you guys out there that don't have parents that fish, or maybe you got a grandson or a kid and you don't know a lot about fishing, my dad, he always kidded me. He taught me how to read by buying me the Bassmaster magazine, and he bought it for me before I could ever read. I just flipped through there and look at the pictures of, Guido Hibden and Rick Clunn and all those guys that have been doing it. So, I got started at an early age, but I didn't really have parents that fished. And I entered into a couple different bass clubs, and as a non-boater, and just from there it just progressed. I just truly loved it. I finally got Dad to buy me a boat, and it was a Bass Tracker V17 with a 40-horse Johnson on it, and I slept in that thing for a week in the yard. I did. I promise you. Put the mosquito spray on, and I slept in that thing, and it was really cool because, Dad, he'd take me to the lake. I couldn't drive yet. I was in probably 8th grade when we got it. And he'd just sit back there and fall asleep reading the Sunday paper, but I'd be up there, didn't have a clue what I was doing, but I'd be flinging away, looking at the pictures of the Bassmaster and trying to emulate everything. But, from there, it was pretty neat because fishing was going really good for me. I was in high school and I was fishing out of that V17 and actually won a little bit of money in a few local tournaments, maybe 20 or 30 boats in it, and then Dad comes home and says, I'm getting transferred to Chicago, Illinois. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. I'm going from Texas to Illinois, of all places. And, I was kind of, country and liked fishing and going to a place that it was cold and ice and you don't have bass boats up there, where I was going. So it was kind of a big shock for me. But ended up meeting some really neat people up there. I worked at a big Ranger dealer kind of like this, and I really got to hang out with a lot of fishermen. So it was really pretty cool. Then I graduated high school, and I wanted to go to a college that had a lake next to it. I really wanted to pursue this fishing career. Didn't know how or if, any of that stuff. And I went to a small school that had a lake next to it there in Oklahoma, southeastern Oklahoma State. I got a partial football scholarship to play there. And of all the different schools I sent tapes to try to get a scholarship to play football, this one had a lake absolute as close to it as any of them. It had Lake Texoma. It was about an 89,000 acre lake and really known for its stripers. But Dad made a deal with me. He said I could take that V17 to school with me, and we had it upgraded by this time. I wore that 40 out, but we had a 75 Mercury on it. And he said I could take that boat with me to school. You know, one, you had to be able to pay for it to store it, and I had to be able to, you know, afford the insurance, and I had to keep A's and B's, you know. So he made it a point that, you know, I could take it, but I had to have good grades. And so I'm going to school there in Southeastern, and, you know, football's going along, and I really ended up giving up football. I played for 2 years, but at that second year, I ended up winning a boat out on Lake Texoma in the Reba McIntyre Open, and it was a Skeeter. It was a, you know, I think back then a 150 or 170, had a 150 horsepower motor. I mean, it was the most awesome thing ever. And I really thought, man, I can make it bass fishing. You know, I thought I really do have a chance, and so I sold that boat and used that money to propel my career. And you know, I continued to fish a whole bunch going through college. And you know, then I made that step to go enter the invitationals. I entered them in the fall of '97. I'll never forget it. It was November. It snowed relentlessly. I mean, it covered the ground on Lake of the Ozarks there, and ended up finishing like 54th. They paid 55 places back then, and I just thought it was the greatest thing ever. But I ended up spending that money, and I bought me a truck camper, and I put it on the back of my truck, and it was an old Viking truck camper, one of them that you cranked up and had canvas all the way around it. And I lived in that thing for, oh man, I had that thing probably till 2003, I think is when I got rid of it. And I mean, I literally lived in it. I'd go to a tournament, or I'd go to Florida in the you know, just whenever I could go, I'd go. And I worked every odd and end job you can imagine going to college. Just to back up a little bit, I was a school bus driver all 4 years. I worked at Golden Corral as, you know, waiting tables. I mowed lawns. We had 52 different accounts, you know, lawn mowing service, and heck, I was a bar back for a little while. I did everything you could imagine, as long as they'd let me off to go fish a tournament, you know, a week-long tournament somewhere along the way. And now finally, you know, I won a tournament like in 2002 or 2003, and I bought me a trailer house, and just kind of really progressed from there. But that's how I got started. It was not one of those things where I had a bunch of money or you know, I had some big sponsor. You know, I didn't get my first sponsor till 2000, the year 2000, and it was the year I made the Bassmaster Classic. And man, it was a $500 a month sponsor. And I was like, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. You know, it was a pretty cool deal. But it was a long, hard road. I mean, it's one of those things that it's not ever easy to get to be an elite angler, or probably to be a pro football player or golfer, whatever it may be. So it was, you know, it's one of those things. You know, I never got married until I was 30 because I could never afford to have a wife, let alone, you know, even think about it. So, you know, it was one of those things. I waited a long time to get married, and I really wanted to pursue my career. But early on, you know, trying to get those sponsors to back up a little bit for somebody that's new. I mean, you're going to get told no 150,000 times to the first yes you'll get. And it's one of those things you just really got to keep knocking on doors, and just always remember, it's not about, you know, what they can do for you, it's about what you can do for them. Just hey, I'm available here, I can help promote you here. And you know, a lot of times you don't have to have this big, great tournament win resume. You just need to be available. You know, like Rick here, he needs help, you know, selling boats or selling tackle, whatever it may be. You just make yourself present, and just, you know, always be positive, and I think that'll go a long ways. But that was the biggest thing. The hardest thing for me is just all the no's you got told. You know, I made a Bassmaster Classic, and I got one sponsor out of the whole deal. You know, I made my second one. I thought, well, I'll get some more, and it never was that way. I mean, it took a long time to get some sponsors. You know, I'm very fortunate now to have a great lineup, but man, it wasn't ever easy. You just because you win a tournament or you actually make the Classic, don't expect that you're going to get this big resume of sponsors. It didn't happen for me that way.